My name is Edwine Gaines, and what I want you to know about me is that I am a woman of power, and I'm a woman of passion, and I care deeply about you and me and all of our brothers and sisters on planet Earth, and it's my full intention to make a difference on this planet. In 1976, I made a commitment to the Lord of my being, the goddess within me, that I would be 100% responsible for the transformation of the abundance consciousness of planet Earth. I travel around the world now, as was said earlier, about 250 days a year, and I've done so for 30 years, enrolling co-equal laborers in this task. Now, I'm very clear that I don't have the foggiest notion how to do this. But one of my teachers said to me, "But Edwine, you didn't know how to do puberty either." Did you? Consciously, I didn't know how to be born. Consciously, I did not know how to give birth to a child, and yet somehow I was able to do those wonderful things. And what I know now with clarity and with certainty is that when any one of us puts our intention out there, and we make a 100% commitment to that intention, and we make every step a step of impeccability, a step of integrity, then somehow the universe opens up a way where before there was no way. So just take a deep breath, if you would, and let me share with you what I call prosperity. Prosperity for me is a vitally alive, healthy body for this God being that we are to express through. Prosperity is relationships that are joyous and satisfying and intimate and honest and nurturing and that work all the time. Prosperity is work that we love so much it's not work, it's play. And prosperity is all the money we can spend. So would that work for you? Take a look and see. Now, it's a huge commitment to have your life work all the time. I mean, for God's sake, what will we talk about? It's my belief that that is the level of living that Jesus the Christ was speaking of when he talked to us about what he called the kingdom of heaven. And what did he say? He said, it's at hand. It's in our midst. This is it. And every single one of us has everything it takes to begin today to live our lives at that level where they work all the time in every area. All it takes is a conscious intention. And you have that intention or you wouldn't be here today. So if indeed it is your intention to begin today to live your life at that level where it works all the time in every area, here's your first task of the day. Now, we'll be getting some more tasks this afternoon in the workshop, but here's task number one. Now, folks, I'm clear that many of you have already received this task, probably more than once by many, many people. But you didn't do it, so here I am. Task number one, your divine assignment for the next 21 days. Absolutely no complaining about anything that happens. Take a deep breath. You can do this. The only appropriate response to anything that comes up in our lives for the next 21 days is, God, that's great. So on that 20th day, be very cautious. And I guarantee you that if you can go for 21 days without complaining about anything that comes up in your life will be transformed. The mystics call this the secret of transcendence. So several years ago, I wrote a book called The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, a simple guide to unlimited abundance. And in that book, I outlined my journey from real holes in my shoes kind of poverty, not being able to feed my baby kind of poverty, to a level of living today that many would consider a life of great wealth. And I did so by coming into alignment with 4 very simple laws. There's nothing new here. You've heard it all before. The trick, folks, is to do it, to bring yourself into alignment with these spiritual principles and watch with wonder as your life expands into almost miraculous dimensions. Now, we're going to talk about some of these laws this morning and all of them this afternoon, but before we get into those, I want to share something with you that's kind of personal. So I'm just going to trust you not to tell anybody. I have an addiction. I am addicted to hot rollers. You know, those electric curlers you plug in and get real hot and you just kind of fry your hair into a new position. I just love those things. I have every set ever made. I never go anywhere without a backup. I took 3 sets with me into the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Couldn't plug them in, but honey, if I ever found a plug, I was ready. But here's the deal. If I don't plug those suckers in, they won't get hot. I can fall on my knees before them and say, please, you heated up for other people. If you love me, you would do this. And my rollers just look at me like I've lost my mind. If I don't plug my rollers in to that energy system that is always there, ready to respond to every demand that I make upon it, my rollers won't get hot. If you don't plug yourself into that energy system that I call God, you're going to miss out in all the wonders that God has here for us, right here, right now. Not someday, not pie in the sky when you die, but right here and right now. It is possible for every desire of your heart to come true. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, says in his book Prosperity that desire is the onward impulse of the ever-evolving soul. Desire is the onward impulse of the ever-evolving soul. Those desires that are in your heart for anything were put there by God to lead you along your spiritual pathway. You honor God when you go for those desires. And if you will come into alignment with these 4 laws, you'll get to see that that is truly true for you. You can have it all. Spiritual law number 1. Take a deep breath now. You can do this. We are required by spiritual principle to acknowledge that we know that God is my source. Say it with me. God is my source. Easy to say, but the law requires an action. And that action is, in order for us to acknowledge that we know that God is our source, we're required by spiritual principle to return 1/10 of all that we've received back to that person, place, or institution where we've received our spiritual food. It's called the tithe, Tithe. Take a deep breath now. Don't go unconscious on me. Start talking about money. Some of these spiritual groups, everybody starts going, oh. A tithe is 1/10 of all that we receive, given back on a regular and disciplined basis to that person, place, or institution where you've received your spiritual food. Now, please hear me. I'm not talking about giving to charity. That's a very kind thing to do, and yes, we ought to do that, but that is not a tithe. I'm not talking about buying books and CDs and affirmation cards and giving them to your friends who need them. That's a very generous and warm-hearted thing for you to do. And as a matter of fact, I brought some along I hope you'll do that very thing with. But that is not a tithe. A tithe is 1/10 of all that we've received, given back on a regular and disciplined basis to that person, place, or institution where we've received our spiritual food. Now, what is spiritual food? Spiritual food is that which causes us to remember who we are, wakes us up and shakes us up and gets us back on our spiritual pathway. And if you're fed through this ministry, your tithe belongs here, but only you know. We'll talk more about that this afternoon, get all the questions answered. Spiritual law number 2, we're required by spiritual principle to forgive everybody all the time, especially ourselves. Now, I've done a lot of forgiveness work in my life, and I continue to work on it on a daily basis. And one of the things that I've noticed about my own process is this. The only people that I ever have to forgive are those people who don't do things my way. And there seem to be a lot of them. And many of them drive in Dallas. I'm just saying. So one of my forgiveness techniques is every night before I go to sleep, I ask myself in prayer, have I put anyone outside my heart today? And usually I have. There's some poor soul that did not get Queen Edwine's edict about how to behave on planet Earth, so it's off their heads. And so I have to forgive myself. First of all, hear this. Forgive myself tenderly and gently, the way you would forgive a little child. Don't beat yourself up. And then I have to set a new intention to be more awake. And I look and see, what was the situation with that? Why did I do that? It's always the same issue for me, folks. It's a control issue. I know how you ought to behave. Do you hear that? I'm working on it. Pray with me. Spiritual law. Well, I want to tell you one more thing about the forgiveness issue here. There's another technique that I use about every 6 to 8 months. I call it a complete forgiveness inventory. And what it looks like is I go apart a while, away from the phones and the office and the staff and the computers, and I take my journal. And I spend the whole day alone with God, just reviewing my life, just to see if there's any kind of negative emotions that are attached to any of my memories. So the incident I want to tell you about happened maybe 15 years ago or so. I'm doing my inventory, and I go way back, parents, grandparents, my brother, up through school teachers and classmates, and up through high school boyfriends and girlfriends, and up through college teachers, professors, activities, and then I get up to work situations, bosses and coworkers, and then employees, and then I get up to all my ex-husbands, and that just takes forever to do that. So I got up to husband number 2. Now, I was just sure that we were complete. I had not seen the man at this time in about 30 years, didn't know where he was, didn't care, wished him well, but he was not, a focal point in my mind. But as I'm doing this inventory and I'm remembering our life together and some of the things that he said and I did and his mother got involved and that kind of stuff, I thought, well, this will never do. So I sat there. And I treated for that man. I affirmed for him every good thing I could think of for about half an hour, out loud and with a strong voice. I said things like, I see you happy and healthy, vitally alive, energetic, getting along great with your kids, living in a beautiful home, engaged in nurturing and loving relationships, traveling, successful in all your businesses, still running, playing tennis and racquetball, all the things you love to do. I mean, I prayed for that man up one side and down the other. When I got through, whew, I felt good. That was done, complete. So I went on about my business. Well, the very next week, I got a letter from this man. Now, you understand, I had not seen him at this time in about 30 years. Evidently, he called Unity Village and got my current address in Alabama. And I got from him one of the sweetest letters I think I've ever received in my life. It went sort of like this. Dear Edwine, you've been on my mind a lot lately, and I just wanted to touch base with you and to let you know how wonderful my life is going these days. I'm happily married to a beautiful woman with a brand new, gorgeous home. We're doing a lot of traveling. The kids have all graduated from college. My businesses are extremely successful. I'm still running and playing tennis and racquetball. Everything that I had affirmed for him, he's feeding right back to me is so. And then he says, I'm writing because I wanted to thank you for the contribution that you made to my life, and to let you know that I remember with fondness some of the laughter that we shared and the good times that we had. And I remember also with sort of a bittersweet poignancy some of the very difficult lessons that we had to learn with each other. But what I want you to know more than anything else is this, that no matter how wonderful my life is today, I am knowing that yours is even better. So sweet. And inside the envelope, he'd included for me a check for $3,000. So I pretty much pray for him every week now. It can't hurt, you know. And while that is funny, there's a powerful truth inside that, folks. Every time that you and I hold on to that least little bit of bitterness or resentment or blame or judgment, when we hold on to our victim status and we're singing that internally, that somebody done somebody wrong song, when we're holding on to that, we're building a wall all the way around us as if we're building up those big, thick concrete blocks. And the good that we desire and deserve can't get in. And every time we forgive the least little thing, we open a way for more good to flow into our lives. So your job is to really make sure that you have a clean temple so that all this good that's there for you can get in. Spiritual law number 3, this is the last one we'll talk about this morning. Spiritual law number 3, we're required to set clear-cut, tangible goals. What do you want? What exactly do you want? Jesus the Christ said, ask and ye shall receive. He did not say, make me guess. Do you realize that most people spend more time planning their 2-week vacation than they do planning their lives? This is your life. What do you want? What exactly do you want? Now, I was doing a workshop several years ago, and right at this point, a young woman at the back jumped up and she said, Edwine, this goal-setting stuff that you talk about is a bunch of bunk. It doesn't work. I said, okay, tell me about it. She says, well, I'm a clerk in a discount department store. I make just a little above minimum wage. How in the world could any of this good stuff that you talk about ever happen for me? Well, you know what I told her. You know this. How is none of your business. God knows how. Your business is, what do I want? So I asked her this question. I ask of you. I said to her, would you be willing to consider the possibility that God has ways of bringing your good to you that you might not have thought of yet? She said, well, yeah. So then I asked her the hard question. See if you could answer this one. I said, what do you want? Boom, she was right back at me. This lady had bags packed. She knew what she wanted. She said, I'll tell you what I want, Edwine. She said, I want to travel the world. I want to see all those sites I've just dreamed about, seen in magazines and watch television programs about. She says, I want to go to the pyramids in Egypt. I want to go to India and Tibet and China. I want to go to the South American countries in the Amazon rainforest. I want to see the Machu Picchu, and I want to go to Tahiti and Australia. I want to go to the capitals of Europe. And she said, I want to go to the opera in Italy. And I'm going to go to the casino in Monte Carlo. And she said, I want to ride in limousines and wear beautiful clothes. That's what I want. So I said to her, would you be willing to consider the possibility that God knows exactly how to do that? She said, well, yeah. I said, then I'm going to ask you to make 2 commitments to me. Commitment number 1, I'm going to ask you to do, there was a handout that you'll get this afternoon, these 10 steps to successful achievement. Every single one of the steps. Don't miss any of them. They're also in the book if you have the book. If you get the book today, I'd love to sign it for you. 10 steps to successful achievement. I'm going to ask you to commit to me that you'll do every single step. Don't skip any of them. Will you promise? She said, I commit to you. I will do that. The second commitment I want for you is I want you to get back in touch with me and give me a report. She said, I promise you I'll do that. Well, I didn't hear from this young woman for quite a while. But when she called, I remembered her. I said, okay, tell me what happened. She said, Edwine, after that day, I got busy doing those 10 steps to successful achievement. Didn't skip any of them. Worked on them every day. She said, I went back to my job as a clerk in a discount department store for about 3 more months. When one morning I found myself, as I awakened in my bedroom, shouting out to my bedroom walls, I am not a clerk. I don't know what I am, but I am not a clerk. She said, I went in that very day and I quit my job. She said, I needed another job, so I began going out immediately on interviews looking for a job. She said, I was out one day, just finished an interview. It went very well. I decided to stop off at this little diner and get me a cup of coffee and redo my makeup to go on another interview. She said, I went in and sat down on a booth, and she said there weren't very many people in the little diner at the time, and someone had left a newspaper on the seat next to me that was open to the classified section. And someone had circled an ad. Ooh. She said, my curiosity got the best of me. I had to see what it was. She said, I went right to the phone and made an appointment for an interview. She said, it sounded so fascinating to me. What it was an elderly woman who in her lifetime had built from scratch 3 very successful businesses. Now this woman had sold her businesses and she was retiring. Now, she did have grown children, but her children were busy with their own lives, and they didn't have a lot of time for her. And this woman now, this older woman, had done nothing in her life except work. And now she was retired. She was wealthy. She wanted to see the world. But she did not want to go by herself. She wanted a young woman who would go with her, who would make all the arrangements, get the first-class airline tickets, hire the limos, get the theater tickets, the tour tickets. When they went to the opera in Italy, the older woman bought her some fancy clothes to wear and loaned her jewelry. When they went to the casino, same thing in Monte Carlo. They traveled together for almost an entire year. Folks, it's almost as if you believe in reincarnation, that they had known each other before because they became fast friends and they enjoyed each other's company. They traveled together for almost an entire year. The older woman didn't care where they went. She just wanted to go somewhere and see something. So the young woman got to set the itinerary. They went every single place the young woman had ever wanted to go. They traveled until the older woman became ill, and the younger woman brought her back to the States to her family, where she lived for about another month, and then she passed. And in her will, she left this young woman a sizable inheritance. So let me ask you, would you be willing to consider the possibility that God has ways and ways and ways and ways to bring your good to you that you might not have thought of yet. We'll talk about these very important principles this afternoon. We start at 1. We're in this room. There's no charge for it. It's offered on a love offering basis. I invite you, if you will, to go and call somebody that you care about and ask them to be here with you. Now, I know that some of you may think that you have other plans. Let me share this one little piece with you. For the past 25 years, every time that I've had a sabbatical, I've gone somewhere in the world to work with a shaman, a medicine man, medicine woman, a High Lama in Tibet, Hindu masters in India, Buddhist teachers all over the world, South America into the rainforest. I've worked with many shamans. I've worked with some of the wisest, most wonderful people on the planet in Tahiti and Australia and Greece and France and England, Scotland, Wales, Italy, all over the world. And all that time, I have learned me some stuff. You don't want to mess with me. You're good sports, folks. Let me close this morning with a teaching given to us by a man named Patrick Overton. You've probably heard it before, but it really does touch my heart. And I want to share it this morning because I'm feeling that's where we are today. Mr. Overton writes, when you have come to the edge of all the light that you know, and you're about to step off into the darkness of the unknown, faith is knowing that one of two things will happen. There'll be something solid to stand on, or you'll be taught how to fly. I'll see you at 1. God bless.